as our homes have been stolen from us, from our culture, our ability to communicate with each other has diminished over the decades. That's something as homemakers we really need to be focused on. We need to learn how to express ourselves in times of frustration in a calm way, not expecting us to, stifle what we're really feeling, because if we're feeling something, it's real. It may not be necessarily as bad as we think we're feeling it at the moment. Hi, it's Liyah with Family Heritage Living. I wanted to do a video today on Q&As. However, because life is what it is, I was unable to do that video that I had mentioned that I would do in last week's video. And that leads me to today's video. One of the questions that somebody sent, she wasn't sure if it belonged in the Q&A that I was talking about or if it would be for a different video. And actually the question was, how do you deal with homemakers burnout? And as I pondered that question, I had to determine the best way to answer that, and if that could be answered in a Q&A or if it needed a video by itself. And honestly, it needed a video by itself. But even after determining that, I still wasn't sure if I could answer that for her, which leads me to today's video. A feeling, or I think something that I struggle with on a regular basis. And though I may have experienced homemakers burnout over the last 30 years on a few different occasions, what I find I struggle with more often is frustration. And you can term that homemaker's frustration. If you're a homemaker like myself, you're usually filling many hats. But in a primary part of your job, your responsibility is to maintain your home, to create that environment that is drawing and loving to your family. You're also cook, you're maid, if you homeschool, your teacher. If you work from home in an environment such as we do, and though I am a huge advocate of encouraging women to stay at home, and I try my best to let that be my primary responsibility, because feminism destroyed the homemaker and the ability to exist on one income, we've had to become resourceful, and in order to increase our income. And part of that for us was opening a home-based business. And with that, I'm responsible for parts of that business. Usually it's behind the computer, customer relations, dealing with listings and things like that. But it's still a responsibility I have, even though I do it from home. But that's not my primary focus. But it does create a certain amount of responsibility that is time consuming. I also am a writer, so I spend a lot of time, try to direct a lot of time to my writing. And when I want to work on specific projects, or I have specific things I need to do in connection with my responsibility as a teacher and as a homemaker, I can find very easily getting frustrated because our home is like this really busy hub. It's four adults constantly moving about, coming in and out, and two younger, no longer children, but two young men, and needing attention, needing direction, whatever the case. I find myself getting frustrated very often at times, and I have to keep myself in check because, like today, I had announced, and that's often because we live in such a small home, and though it's growing larger, it's still considerably small. We still have just like 3 rooms on the main floor, and they're within close proximity. Work orders come from me. Direction for what's going on the property often is something that I'm overseeing, and so I am kind of like the supervisor too at the same time. So I try to announce when I'm going to be doing a video or when I've got something special I need to make sure is quiet, so I have that time with the kids, or if I'm going to be writing. And I try to do that with enough time for my older guys to make sure that they coordinate their work schedule to line up with mine. And more than not, there's always a kink thrown in somewhere. which that's part of life, yes. But when all the activities are in your home, as a homemaker, it can be very frustrating. I needed to vent yesterday. And I didn't want to vent because I knew I had a bad attitude. And I knew that all of a sudden, all of that stuff that had been, frustrating me came to a head. And it was nobody's fault. Nobody did anything. It was just how things fell together. But I knew if I released to my husband, who, we're husband and wife, we're best friends. We share our failures and our successes with each other. We share our frustrations and our joys. So I just needed to talk, but I knew that at the same time, I could really create a bad atmosphere in my home if I was talking out of an emotional exhaustion versus letting things calm down to say, okay, look, we've got an issue we've got to address here. I'm starting to feel really frustrated in my responsibilities, that not because I have them, but because I'm not getting them done in a timely manner that I know I need to do. And as I'm thinking about this, telling myself, this isn't a good time, just wait. Next thing I knew is it was just falling out of my mouth. I'm just like, do you not know how upset I am right now, how frustrated I am? And even though as those words were coming out, I could feel like this strong urge, the Lord prompting on me, calm down. You can say what you need to say, and you can let him be there to listen without making him feel like you're targeting him. Now, in our home, communication is a big deal. That doesn't mean that emotions don't run away with us from time to time, or things don't get us bent out of shape from time to time, but communication is number one. And it doesn't matter whether you're married, with or without children. If you live with somebody else, I cannot emphasize enough, if you want to keep a peaceful home environment as a homemaker, you have got to learn to communicate. Not expect perfection from yourself or from somebody else. Give yourself grace for making mistakes. Give them grace for making mistakes. But learn to communicate. Learn to share those feelings and learn how to express those feelings. Not just share them, but make sure you're sharing them in a constructive way. Now, I've been married for a long time, and I came from a home, so I may have mentioned this before, I came from a narcissistic home. So communication was not something that was practiced, not healthy communication. And I'm glad from my experience as a child, because what that did was that made me, as I grew, to know the things that I wanted in my own family. And it's been central in our marriage to make communication number one. Even when we didn't know how to communicate, learning to talk with each other, learning to meet each other's emotional needs. And part of what we go through, I think, as homemakers, whether it's frustration or burnout, it's heightened if we approach things in the wrong way. If we put somebody, if we've got all this stress on us, and we just, instead of saying it with a feeling of, I need you to listen to me, I need a listening ear, or if we say it with the feeling of, I am so angry at you, or I feel this is all your fault, because we can impress those feelings upon someone else by the way we say something. And I think, when I think about being frustrated, there's so much responsibility on us as a homemaker, and we can find ourselves drowning in our own self-disappointment by feeling like we don't have enough time. So my kids have always been early risers, and I mean early risers. And 3 of the 4 are talkers. I mean, from the time their feet hit the floor, they want to talk. Now, as they've gotten older, it has gotten better. But when they were younger, I kind of got into the habit of getting up early before them, so that I had a certain amount of time to myself, because that would be the only time I'd have throughout the day. And as they've grown, my time has still been that early morning time. So I get up between 4 and 4:30 every morning, but I do that for me. That's my time. That's my devotional time, my Bible reading time, my prayer time, and then a bit of quiet time before the house gets busy. And after that, it's kind of like a nonstop event. But I find that I can get too caught up with being busy. Like, things that need to be done, But if I don't prioritize well, or if I let things throw a monkey wrench in them, then it totally puts the priority list out of whack. And what I had to learn over time was that that's reality. Okay. That's reality for most of us. Most of us are not going to accomplish the majority of the things on our list that we call priorities. And we need to start learning how to evaluate those things, those important things. Now, obviously, if there's stuff on your list that isn't getting done, that really needs to be done, then that's when you, like me, I mean, I had to call a meeting this morning. I told everybody last night, I said, I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not I'm not frustrated with you. It's nothing you've done, but I need to talk with you because we need to come to understanding together. We need to try to problem solve some things. So that's what we do in our family. If somebody is struggling, we've tried to have an open door policy that we bring it to the floor to everybody who's involved that could make a difference, and see if they have any ideas, not just for that other person, but we ask ourselves, is there something I can do for you that would make this easier on you, or that would make you feel like you're obtaining what you're reaching for? And I think that as our homes have been stolen from us, from our culture, and our ability to communicate with each other has diminished over the decades, that's something as homemakers we really need to be focused on. We need to learn how to express ourselves in times of frustration, in a calm way, not expecting us to, stifle what we're really feeling, because if we're feeling something, it's real. It may not be necessarily as bad as we think we're feeling it at the moment, but it's like my husband and I always tell each other, and tell our children, if you're feeling it, then it's real, and we need to deal with it. So as homemakers, we need to learn how to communicate. Often, most of us have come from unhealthy backgrounds on communication and sharing, and we need to find the healthy side of communicating. And it's mainly just a learning skill. It's something that can be learned if you really desire it. Get down. But it can be learned, and it can even be when we learn it and we share that as an example. Often those around us will start to see a difference and start to learn to communicate that way too. So now, I did that video yesterday, right? I got everybody out and I got a video done, and I talked about frustration. So I went to edit it this morning, and I have been having trouble with my microphones. I've been using Zeb's Bluetooth microphone. Well, the audio's off with the recording. So I decided to go old school yesterday and plug it in my old plug-in mic. And this morning I realized that the plug-in mic was had issues of its own. It was all type of distortion and stuff. And so that built up another level of frustration, because you take time, important time, limited time to do something, and it doesn't turn out. But it was one more opportunity for me to say, you know what? I've got to want something bad enough to persevere over that. And it was an example. I had all eyes on me because they knew I was frustrated yesterday. And it wasn't their expectation, but it was my understanding that I set the tone. And I simply said, all right, you guys, chore time. I'm closing the front door, and I'm going to do a video, so don't come in until that door is open. But, all right, well, I just wanted to share this with you guys. I do hope it helps somebody think about responses to your loved ones, that the control you have in your home is far more than what most people understand. We, as women, as homemakers, we have so much power in our hands. The amount of power that we hold to form our home atmosphere, to develop our loved ones, whether they're children or our spouse, is unmeasurable. And we have to understand that our role, our position as a homemaker is one of the most powerful positions that a woman can choose to have. Until next time, I hope you have a great week. and we will talk soon. God bless.